Well, my name is Mary Baxter, and I guess I've shown here for, I don't know, 8 years maybe, and I live in Marfa, and also sometimes in New Mexico. And I'm part of this show with my painter friends, which I'm very excited about. I've been painting probably about 30 years, and it started out, I was working on a ranch and I just started sort of painting as a hobby because I saw so much beauty while I was there and I wanted to record it. So I just started making little paintings for fun for myself, and then I went to a gallery and I was surprised that they sold. That was in Alpine, Texas. And they sold and I made more and they sold, and then it kind of went from there. So I guess probably painting professionally for about 20 years or 25 years. I think this one, actually it started in a weird way, probably pre-pandemic, so 4 years ago. And then we really got after it and really began to paint the ranches about 2 years ago. Well, it began accidentally. One of the landowners, Ross Forrest, he's a young man and a new collector and new to art. He contacted me. He actually bought one of my paintings at the Gage Hotel in Marathon, and he liked it, and he contacted me and asked if I'd come out and paint their family ranch, and I agreed and fell in love with the place. That's the X-Bar Ranch. And on that visit, as I was painting, I realized that my fellow painters needed to be there also, because nobody paints water better than David Caton. And Noe needed to paint the trees, and Jeri needed to paint everything. And so I asked the family if I could invite my friends, and they very generously agreed. And that's how it began. When I invited my friends, it was with no thought of a project. It was just that they really needed to see this ranch, the X-Bar Ranch, where it began. And we like that our styles complement each other, and I think they do too. So we worked pretty hard, several hours in the morning and several in the afternoon, doing the plein air studies each day. And then the larger works we would do back in our studio. Well, we did it was fun to paint together as a group, and I'd never done that before, ever. I always just painted by myself, and they did also mostly. I think David's painted with several other people giving workshops, but that was a new one for the other artists and myself. So it was really fun hanging out and painting the same places. Where we were, the beauty, I mean, you could look 360 degrees around and find something paintable. So we might be facing 4 different directions, but be near enough to each other to talk. And then sometimes we were farther away. When we got tired of talking to each other, we could wander 50 yards away and still find things to paint. A lot of times we were looking in the same direction, so we knew we were painting sort of the same scene. And I worried for a slight minute, what if our paintings are too similar? And they weren't at all. And that's the fun of it, is to get different styles for the same scene. My style, I'm not trying to make it look like a photograph. And there's nothing that can compare with seeing these scenes in real life. That's always the best. So a painting is second to that. But I can do things with a painting to help bring it back to real life, I guess you might say. And I think the color choices come into play. We cannot compete with reality. And when I began painting in plein air, it was so frustrating because I was competing with reality. And so every single painting was a disappointment. But it's a common problem for painters, especially more impressionistic painters. We tend to get too literal. Right. We're looking at the beauty and we're trying too hard to record it, and we want to record every little detail of it, and then it's, too much. It wasn't attainable to compete with reality. And when I finally figured it out, okay, I can come up with a different version. Yeah. And it became more fun and maybe more successful, and yes, it opened up a whole new world. I don't know if that piece is showing up. I'm just partial to this painting for some reason. I can't really explain it. I guess just because I felt like it was a successful fast. They have to be fast for me. If I don't get them done fairly quickly, they don't make it. I don't know. It was a really magical spot. Caton and I were really close to each other at that spot. He did almost the same scene and nailed it even more, I would say, but in the middle part of the painting, I mean, during the process, I was getting lost, and then I think I found my way back, which doesn't always happen. and that it does happen, and sometimes you don't find your way back, and then that painting is destroyed, and we start over. You know, sometimes you can bring it back and save all that that effort and investment. So it's really hard to give it up. And then the longer you try to save it, the more you're invested. It's really hard. And every now and then I'll say, okay, I'm done. You know, it's beating a dead horse. And usually I'll start that painting over fresh, because maybe I learned my lesson, I know what I did wrong, and I'll start again. And hopefully get it the second time. But ideally I have enough in the drawing and the idea and the composition that the painting goes relatively fast, and those are my better paintings. We always try to push ourselves to do the next one better and differently. And it's hard because we get set in our ways. So to break the frustration, I have to force myself to, so I try not to do it just like the one I did yesterday or the day before. And so the challenge of the new scene and the new, I don't know, the challenge of newness is what we need. If we don't push ourselves and challenge and jump off cliffs in the painting process, I think we do become frustrated. And it's not that people might not like the product, but that's not the point. There's some well-known artist that I think he made a big canvas and he wrote over and over, like when we were in trouble in school, Valdesari, and he said, I will not create any more boring art. I will not create any more boring art. So sometimes I think of that mantra. Not that I hope I'm not creating boring art, but I think it's a good mantra to push ourselves. And that's when it becomes exciting. When we have a day in the studio, when we've learned something, we've had an epiphany, it doesn't get better than that.